In a world where law firms constantly miss out on new leads due to sloppy legal intake, and often because they just aren't answering the phone, two marketers aim to provide a glimmer of hope.
I thought we agreed we weren't going to do the announcer thing.
Thank God, because that hurts my throat. You do the intro.
Gladly. I'm Tony Prieto, and this is my colleague Nick Werker. Believe it or not, we're marketing professionals.
Well, I think you're the professional, but we are true experts when it comes to all matters legal intake.
For over a decade, our company, Answering Legal, has helped ensure that growing law firms never miss out on connecting with new leads.
And now we're ready to share our trade secrets and help make the legal world a better place.
Or at the very least, help our listeners shore up their lead capturing processes and convert more callers to clients.
Welcome to the Legal Intake Experts Podcast.
Let's dive right in.
We are back once again here on the Answering Legal Intake Experts Podcast. Yes, I know the word legal is redundant. In saying that, that's fine. Full disclosure, a peek behind the curtain, we batch these episodes. So if you are out there thinking, oh my God, how can I make content? They pump out so much content. They're just marketers. They don't have to do anything all day. We batch this stuff and then we release it. So I'm wearing the same shirt as the prior episode. Okay?
Everything Nick said is a lie. I only own one shirt.
I love you, man. Okay, so I've been informed by the plug in my ear. What do newscasters say when they breaking news.
This just
breaking
in.
news. Breaking news. This just in. Breaking news. This episode comes out right before Halloween, and so we thought it would be fun to talk about the history of our Halloween costumes. And because I have such a bad memory, and you say you have a bad memory, but you do not. First of all, I'm going to tell you my favorite Halloween costume ever. That's what we're going to do. My favorite Halloween costume ever is a costume that I did with my wife because I don't think I had very many good Halloween costumes growing up. Not for lack of having a bad childhood. It's just I don't think I was very creative when it comes to Halloween. We were Cosmo and Wanda from the Fairly Odd Parents, and that just about tells you how old I am. But if you don't know what that is, they are two fairy godparents. One has green hair and wears a white collared shirt and a black tie, and one has pink hair and wears a yellow t-shirt. And so we got fairy wings and wands with stars on them because that's accurate to the show. I wore a green wig and my wife wore a pink wig, and maybe, just maybe, I will put a picture of that on LinkedIn when I post this episode.
It's a great photo. I have not dressed up for Halloween in a long time, but
Ooh.
the one I remember the most is I went to it was 2006. So picture me, I'm 11. Guitar Hero 3 has just come out, and I've been playing a lot of it. And there's a Halloween party I do not want to go to, but my parents say you're going, and my mom says my mom is a Halloween expert. She puts up the fake cobwebs every year. She loves Halloween almost as much as she loves Christmas. And she says, you're going as Slash. So they get me a top hat, a leather jacket, a wig, and I go in with the Guitar Hero guitar. Funny enough, I later learned how to play the guitar. And people would ask me when I was 11, do you play the guitar? And I had to be like, no, I'm a poser. This is a Halloween costume. They had a contest, and I did not win. I got second behind. I'm from Miami. Most people are Hispanic, especially Cuban in that circle that I was in. But the one Anglo-American kid who dressed up as Flava Flav.
Oh, that's a good story. Yeah. I think you might have made me laugh too hard for the podcast. Oh, I did not know that. So I have a counterpoint to that story, and then we will get into the podcast unless this gets edited out for some reason. I, as a young boy, had a friend who was very into classic rock, and we took guitar lessons together, and we were into AC/DC and Guns N' Roses and all that. And that was around the time that Slash formed a band with Scott Weiland of, I believe, Stone Temple Pilots, among other famous musicians. Velvet Revolver. Ooh, I loved that band. And so I was also Slash for Halloween. And to this day, I have not a Gibson Les Paul, because I really should go and buy a Gibson Les Paul with my adult money. But I have an Epiphone Les Paul because I loved Slash so much. And so maybe one day, Tony, we will be Slash together for Halloween and see who does it better.
I would need a couple years to grow out my hair if I wanted to do it without a wig.
You gotta stop making me laugh. Okay. So, Tony, I don't know how we can top that and have any more fun, but I thought we'd kick things off today with a little game.
I mean, I love games, so I'm in.
Okay. Good. We're gonna play. Hi, Rosie. We're gonna play the blame game.
I have to say that the blame game might be one of my least favorite games, but we can continue.
So, this is a hot topic. Hot topic. And also, I would like to take this time to address Tony's dog, Rosie, who I love and adore, is barking. And if you pay attention close enough to other episodes of the podcast, you can see that I am very clearly not looking at the camera and I'm leaning off to one side because I am petting my dog, Alfie, who is a very anxious and whiny boy. And he likes to whine while he's in here with me, even though he's with his favorite person in the world. Oh, but back to the topic because I will go on a tangent forever. Today's question for the blame game is, hot topic, should you blame your marketing agency if your firm isn't bringing in new clients?
You say hot topic. This is definitely, we are marketing people. We're in-house, of course, but we are cousins to the marketing agency, and this is going to cause a lot of family strife, this discussion.
You know what I think is the coolest part is I see my favorite, I will call them my favorite to their face, marketing agency owners, leaders, and people who are in that space have so much accountability for like intake, like all the, like you log into LinkedIn in the morning and everybody's got their scheduled posts for like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. I'm still winging it. But I saw one today from my friend Bo Royal at Prieto Legal. Check out Bo Royal. He does all like paid Google ads, Bing ads, Facebook ads, everything that you could possibly do in terms of paid marketing and deep data analysis and storage and all that. But most of his that I see posts are about how he won't even work with a law firm, or I shouldn't say, he probably doesn't reject them outright. He probably just helps them set it up, but he won't work with a law firm that doesn't have a handle on their intake, because marketing is going to be the first to be blamed when, say, he does a really good job and he drives all these leads to your firm and none of them convert and you don't make any money. And then you turn around and you say, the leads were crap and none of them converted. So he talks about how like intake is super important and he actually owns that and helps consult. I don't know how he fixes it. I'm not in the day-to-day of Prieto Legal. I'm sure he does a great job, but he at least addresses it.
Yeah, and that's the key, is that a marketing agency's job is to deliver leads, mostly leads of quality. And then once you have those leads, what happens to them, it is no longer in the marketing agency's court, but it's very easy to say, okay, well, the marketing agency is giving us bad leads. It's very easy. It's always easy to push the blame off of yourself. That's so much easier than sitting down and figuring out, okay, are the leads bad, or is our handoff bad? Is our intake bad? Is our dreaded word in legal, sales, bad?
Here's how I think we should talk about this. How do we identify what the problem is? So say the marketing agency says that they're delivering you a ton of leads. You say you're not making any money. Where do you look? How do we diagnose this problem?
Yeah, so legal issues are, in economic terms, inelastic. It doesn't matter whether the economy is good or bad, whether people have a lot of savings or they don't. They're going to have legal issues, and they have to pay to resolve them. That is obviously, as a business, in your benefit. And so that means that one of the things that a lot of other businesses have to deal with, which is seasonality, you often don't have to. There are, of course, tax attorneys have a seasonal, cyclical nature to their business. There are exceptions, of course. But generally speaking, month to month, you should be experiencing, hopefully, the same amount of leads, increasing if you're increasing your budget, but if nothing else is changing, the same amount of leads. That's something that is, if the leads are going down, okay, maybe it's 1 month, but you can't say, oh, well, it's the summer, no one's spending money on legal. I'm sorry, if you get a traffic ticket, if you're injured, it doesn't, those kinds of things happen all the time. There might be, your personal injury, people slip and fall more in the winter. Who knows? I live in Miami, I wouldn't know. But it should be pretty consistent in terms of what your agency can control in that sense.
Two things. They have banana peels in Miami, and so you could slip and fall on a banana peel. So I pushed back on that idea.
Mario Kart.
No, the only thing I could think, and I had to stifle this out of myself because I like to listen to you because you said, oh, like in economic terms, this is inelastic. And I just wanted to be like, you're so smart. I have this story. I have my cousin, and my cousin's been married to his partner for as long as I can remember. And they told me this one story at dinner a couple of years ago. I love this story. I find it so funny. They were having an argument in their basement, and they have like a home gym. And my cousin John is like walking or running on the treadmill, and his partner Kenny is like lifting weights. And if you know anything about them, that is the most John and Kenny thing that is going on. They're having some sort of spat and argument. And my cousin John falls down off the treadmill, and like the belt is like going to eat him up. And my cousin Kenny runs over, scoops him up, and like helps him off the treadmill. And in the middle of the argument, my cousin John just looks up at him and goes, "You're so strong." And so I thought of that when I was like, "Oh, you're so smart." But okay, so
In the interest of that, I should correct myself. The demand is inelastic would be the technical term.
you're gonna make me say it again. So I think you're right, and I think you're right for a few reasons, because I have my own experience with marketing. Is that once you've sort of like set your processes for marketing, there's fluctuations, of course, but there's an expectation that like you're visible and that people are entering the market all the time, and like a similar amount of people are entering the market and becoming buyers at the same time. There's a whole principle of that, right? But I want to push back on the idea that, how do I talk about this? So that like lead quality is ever that much of a factor, right? And I see this a lot with attorneys who talk about like, they're like, I don't want this case, I don't want that case, like I only do this, I only do that, which is great. Like you should be niche, like you're not for everybody. We talk about this like all the time. But I push back on the fact that you're not getting the right kind of leads and you're rejecting them. I charge you to look at your intake process and have an honest conversation with the way that you are qualifying people and what process you're taking to get there. And also, if that is a problem, there's like a serious mismatch of client persona and issue that they're facing versus what your target audience is. Like you need to have a conversation on goals with your marketing agency. So I think it's a twofold thing. You need to look at the process by which you're taking to get them there and the actual like problem that walked through the door. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, baseline, first of all, you need to be able to tell if these leads are coming in. You have a CRM that can report for you. That'd be great. This should be sort of like a level 0 assumption. And then be able to qualify the leads and then see how many you're getting that you think are qualified. And of course, there's the possibility that you're bringing in the wrong people, you're targeting the wrong people. But that could also, it could be on the marketing agency's end, of course, but it could also be on your end, right? Like you were talking about, maybe you don't have the right client profile. Maybe your client profile is too niche for the kind of marketing you're doing, and you need to change your strategy. That is kind of a joint issue that you can resolve with your marketing agency. But like if the lead volume is stable and you know that they're good and you're still not converting them, then that issue is solely in your court. Unfortunately or fortunately, it's not the marketing agency's job to convert the clients. That is your job.
You made a really good point. And I just imagined this scenario, and I'm gonna be harsh because I'm working on being more direct. I'm a people pleaser and I am in therapy. I believe everybody should go to therapy, and I'm working on being more direct. And in the 4 agreements, it says to be impeccable with your word. I read that a few years ago, and I try to be impeccable with my word. I'm imagining a scenario that marketing agency is delivering you, let's say out of all of the total leads, 50% are qualified, right? Let's say from there, you take 20% of them on as clients, right? Or that's your ideal number that you're shooting for, because you've measured that the cost per acquisition is, I don't know, $100, and the money that you're going to make on it is $10,000 per case, right? That would give you what, 1,000x? That'd be huge. So maybe not a good example, but let's run with it because this is off the top of my head. So you're shooting for this 20% conversion rate of the 50% qualified leads. And for like months in a row, you are at 5% conversion rate. The identifiable problem exists in your ability to take them from this lead or potential new client that totally fits the persona and the demographics and the problem that you seek to solve. The touch points. So there's so many things that could go wrong, right? But what are your processes and where is the fall off, right? And this is totally measurable, totally measurable. I'll give you an example because I love examples. 50% of leads come in. Your process is that after you get the lead and your intake team does an intake on them, or the answering service delivers the message, and they get on your calendar and you do a 15-minute consultation. After that, you set next steps. You're like, okay, this consultation went great. I am going to send you a retainer agreement. You sign it. I'm your attorney. I represent you. It outlines all the fees that we're going to talk about, and you set expectations, and you send that email. And for whatever reason, you notice that only 5% of people are completing the step that you're asking them to take. Look at the email. You know what I mean? What's wrong with the email? Where can you improve it? And then one of my favorite things to tell people to do is reach out to that person. They're not going to always answer, but sometimes they will, and say like, hey, why didn't you choose us? Right? And maybe the follow-up is like, oh, I totally forgot to sign it. And like, I'm kind of screwed now. Or I don't know, I got another consultation and it was way cheaper. And then you know that it was the price. Wherever the communication ended is where you can look to diagnose that problem.
One of those things that is easy to miss growing up, it's like you're in school, you're like, when am I ever going to need this? I find myself thinking of the scientific method, which, you learn when you're 10 all the time, right? All you need to do to solve this problem is have a way to measure it and then look at those results, right? So if you have a process that comes in, people call you, you call them back, you schedule a consultation. From that consultation, you send them representation agreements, right? That's a very simple 4-step process. If you have a CRM, each of those is a stage in your CRM, and you can see where the fall off happens. And you don't even have to know anything about the reporting tools in the CRM, which you should know. You could just literally look at the list and see, wow, I see a lot of people in the sent representation agreement stage. Is it my prices? What is it? Right? And you can reverse engineer the problem and try to solve it. And sometimes it's multiple things, right? Like if someone doesn't show up to the consultation, it could be that they forgot. So like you said, you need to send reminder texts. It could be that they found someone else, which maybe you need to speed up your follow-up process. Whatever it is, once they're in your court, most likely it's not the marketing agency's problem anymore. And it's very easy to say, well, they're giving me bum leads. But if you've set up a way to measure the viability of a lead and the leads you're reaching out to meet those standards, then either something wrong with your standards, which is something you can solve, or something's wrong with your approach, which is also something you can solve. But the thing is, that is a good thing, because if it's the marketing agency's problem, then you have to tell them to solve it, and you have to count on their expertise, which is good, but it isn't in your hands. But if it's in your hands, that means that you get to solve it your way. You get to learn from this and become a better business owner.
Shout out to the scientific method. That was the name of a Jeopardy category last night. I actually talk about the scientific method here a lot because it's like, oh, hypothesis testing, marketing, right? And then you control group and this and that. I don't have to tell marketers about that. And that's very boring. However, one of the questions on the scientific method last night, I don't remember the clue, but the answer was quarks. And I knew that answer because one of the men I am closest with in my life is a particle physicist at Brookhaven National Labs. Shout out to my buddy Matt, the physicist who taught me about quarks. I wish I could remember the clue.
I'm sorry, Nick. You have to phrase the answer in the form of a question.
What are quarks? What are quarks? So here's the last thing I want to cover. I learned about this process because what you have to understand is obviously, and Tony is very also obviously very cognizant of the way that lawyers and law firm owners must run their business in order to align on goals, and like provide solutions. However, most of what we do is in the front, right? We're front of house. And if you want to talk in terms of restaurant, we're the welcoming, we're the answer. We're like if a Michelin star restaurant, like you ever watch The Bear and they like make your experience really good, or he runs down the street and gets a pizza from the Chicago pizza place. It's a great show. We do that sort of stuff. What I think is really cool and can provide your intake with a ton of information is an exit interview. I want you to think about it this way, that every interaction that a client has with you is part of your brand. One of the first interactions they have with you is during your intake and onboarding process of them hiring you. Ask them when you're done handling their case, because like you should be asking for reviews at like certain milestones, but ask them at the conclusion of their case what it was like working with you and how it was for them hiring you to represent them. And you could get so much information from that where they're like, oh, like in the beginning, it was a real pain to get somebody on the phone, or it was a real pain to get a response to an email because I'm a nurse and I work night shifts from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. Shout out my sister who actually does that. Or it's 7 to 7. It's not 5 to 5. And so like I knew I had to send an email because it was overnight and like I was at work and this problem happened and so on and so forth. You know, the response time could have been better, or, you know, you made me come down to the office and I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to do a Zoom call, you know, like find out these things that you can do to provide better service to your clients so that you decrease the amount of drop off.
And that's the thing, is we were talking about ways to analyze things to change from failure, right? Not converting a qualified lead. You could think of it as a failure if you really wanted to be down on yourself. But this is a way to get that information from successes, because even if you provided that person with like the best possible result and you ask them that question, like, what was it like? Hiring a lawyer is a stressful process, and they're going to, unfortunately, because of the way that human nature and memory works, remember the most stressful parts of this process. And you can take from that ways to reverse engineer and reduce the amount of stress and assume that those are drop-off points where this person did not drop off. And whatever reason that is really not something you can control, but what you can control is making that experience as smooth as possible. And one of the ways you could do that is by hiring a 24/7 answering service like Answering Legal.
I love when you do that. Last thing I'll say, everything we talked about, improving all of that, will help you in your client acquisition so much. Here's how. The topic of reviews is, lawyers love reviews. And it's because marketing agencies stress the power of Google reviews. Do I think that this is a sustainable way to distinguish yourself? No, I do not. I don't. But for now, it is what it is. And it's not spam. And, you know, it's getting reviews, and social proof is always going to be important. I push back on the idea that that's going to last forever. However, I will stop on my soapbox. When you have these great touch points with a client and better customer service, because that's ultimately what we're talking about here in order to convert them to a client, and you do something like an exit interview, once you find out ways to improve that, you're going to improve the experience, right? But when you have that exit interview with a former client now, which is a great thing, you will remind them of all the good experiences that they had with your firm so that they can speak more eloquently and in more detail on the review that you should ask them to write.
And even though things are changing, right, like Google reviews, maybe people are doing less research on Google and more research on ChatGPT. A lot of times, you know, when you type in, where should I go for date night in Manhattan, ChatGPT is going to go through the ratings of those things and return the Dorsia if you're Patrick Bateman. And those markers are signals. It is very difficult to tell, especially with something as complicated as the law, whether someone is a reputable representation of their profession. And Google reviews, whatever review platform it is, are a very simple way to look at a thing, read what people say about it, and then make the decision yourself. And that is so important because the internet is full of scammers at the very least. And people are habitually make decisions based on those 5 little stars. And the more of those that you have, the better off you are. And all of this is part of the client experience and ensuring that when someone becomes a client, they're likely to review you, recommend their friends. And all of those things, paying attention to all of those things will also increase the number of people who sign up later, not just because you have better reviews, but because of the things you did to get those reviews, you smoothing out those pain points so that someone is more likely to, you use that example of a restaurant, right? Like intake is the host, marketing and intake are the host. Sales is the waiter, right? He's the person who goes in and says, oh, you should really get that tomahawk steak tonight. It's fantastic. And then the chef is the person who works there. But unfortunately, in law, you are both the waiter and the chef. So you take the order and then you run back and you make it happen.
You made me laugh too much on camera today. I have a confession, and then we will wrap it up. My confession is that I, because of the nature of the work that I do, only see ads for legal marketing agencies, what would you call that? Like fractional operations, all sorts of like solutions for lawyers, right? And some of them are such bad scams. And I have a file on my phone of screenshots that I save of these scammers and their promises and their guarantees and their shady tactics, and I save them. And sometimes when I look back through my camera roll, I look at them again. And I'm going to make this confession, which means I can never do it. And so that if it is being done, it is not me. I will say that now. I am not Batman. However, I was going to start like an anonymous Batman troll account where I posted these screenshots and just like detailed how bad of a scam this thing is. And then like would be like a meme lord, anonymous meme lord on the internet calling out scammers everywhere in the legal community. I'm not going to do it.
And if
but
you
I want
see
to.
It happen, you know that Nick has been captured and is being held hostage.
They found my swipe file.
It's the blackmail is loose.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not Batman, not Bruce Wayne today, even though there is a dog who lives near me that I pass on either runs or walks with my wife, and his name is Batman, and I love him very much. So,
Good dog name.
Role reversal again. What a great dog name. I call him Bruce. The woman who owns him, Lisa, thinks that's very funny. She says my boyfriend also calls him Bruce Wayne, Mr. Wayne. She had another good one.
Put on the
Oh, don't do it.
Theatricality and deception, Mr. Wayne. Powerful tools for the uninitiated.
I'll tell you what, when you come and stay with me, we will go on a walk and you will meet Mr. Batman himself. He's a very small, I don't know what kind of dog he is. He's like a small black dog, and he's great. He doesn't like me very much.
I do the Bane voice.
Ooh, yeah, you might touch a nerve there. But anyway, I know we reference Answering Legal a few times. So I want to let our listeners know that they can head to answeringlegal.com to learn more about our virtual receptionist service and how we can help lawyers, hopefully, convert these qualified leads that their marketing agencies are bringing them into new clients. There's also a link in the bio of this episode to get started with a 400-minute free trial of the service. 400 minutes is a lot to use. Just putting that out there.
Want to thank all of our listeners. If you like this podcast, you can find more episodes of Legal Intake Experts. All of them are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel. If you don't like this podcast, what's wrong with you?
If you don't like this podcast, you have horrible, horrible taste, and you should reevaluate everything that you like and enjoy in life.
And on that very positive note.
Yeah. On that very positive note, we will see you next time. Peace.
It's a mic drop.